Welcome to the second episode of the Grow in the Dark podcast. This episode is called Influencing the Democratization of Power. If you'd like to find our first episode, which was banned off YouTube, search us up on BitChute. Without further ado, Influencing the Democratization of Power. As history continues to repeat itself, the man of the people or the kind king is always sacrificed, just like Jesus. What if, however, every man had the opportunity to make his voice be heard and share his wisdom with all? Could they still stop all of us? Today, with the development of influencers, this question is being put to the test. Perhaps there has been no better time in history for the chance to democratize power as there is today. Conventionally, would-be saviors and reformers like Bernie Sanders, RFK Jr., and Henry Wallace were cheated before fully gaining power, while others like AOC and Obama are seemingly corrupted once they reach power. That is, of course, unless they were already liars to begin with. Then we've always had the examples of saviors who were assassinated before their change could be made. Some say King Tut would even fall into this category of those who were assassinated before their time. But we may definitely include here JFK and the other political assassinations of the 60s, like RFK, MLK, Malcolm X, and Fred Hampton. This Jesus archetype is nothing new and has constantly repeated itself throughout the ages anytime some good was about to come down to the people. My main takeaway from noticing this pattern has been the idea that we cannot look or wait for salvation to come to us from the top down. Instead, we must save ourselves. Influencing is the next step after this internal change, and it has the ability to democratize the power to even help change others. Not through attempts at systematic change, those of which all have been shown to fail in the past, but through the changing of the hearts and minds of one citizen at a time. The kind king can finally now share his voice and love with all. With that being said, the lowly, narcissistic materialist has also found his greatest chance to rule in the new age of information. So we must stay vigilant when it comes to whose voice we listen. Some of these ideas about ego-driven people who are obsessed with becoming the popular kids, and other ideas on different forms of idolatry are echoed in our superspectrum reviews of One Battle After Another and Him. So I direct you all there for even more spiritual armor. For now, though, let's dive back into influencing by giving you all the best examples of good influencers in this new frontier of the battle between light and dark. In the technology-driven, humanitarian, water or spirit-bearing age of Aquarius, there has been no greater embodiment of the heroic yet flawed savior and leader for his people than Sam Hyde. It makes sense that Sam would become the first great example on this new front, as he is an Aries, the natural leader of the zodiac. In spite of being rejected and defamed by the system of illusions that is the fake Hollywood world of Adult Swim and their fellow media shows, Sam defied all odds and sought not for arbitration with the powers that be, but instead he chose to bravely construct a network of his own. Starting again from scratch, he first created a solo internet following with his comedic and philosophical takes on reality, recorded not only in his mother's basement, but also out in public, and sometimes even in front of TEDx audiences. Once Sam had gained traction again on his own, he decided to start reincorporating his friends into his work, through podcasts and a reboot of his previously network broadcasted show. At the same time, Sam also started inviting a new generation of like minded performers and artists to work with him. Through Sam's unstoppable and unfiltered creative expression, he has had some takes I disagree with, for I believe his blanketed assertions of others are often wrong. That being said, his strong Aryan nature towards impulsive action probably is as much responsible for his rise than it is his negative behaviors, and I would never want to throw out the baby with the bathwater, as without Sam's example and his more often than not nuanced takes, I doubt I would have taken the path I have today. Where Sam's characteristics as an Aries have catapulted him to the divisive leader of the Aquarian age, a more recent and more thoughtful, heroic influencer of the New Age has emerged. His name is Andreas Nicholas, or Exertus, and he is fittingly an Aquarius. While Sam embodies the leadership aspect of the masculine age of Aquarius, Exertus reflects more purely the sign itself, especially its Uranian and airy qualities of technology, communication, humanitarianism, and intelligence. His historical videos on Tartaria, interviews, and podcasts have all been aimed at enlightening his audience. His takes are so knowledgeable and eloquent, yet almost always completely against the narrative of mainstream media organizations, which is actually the organizations where he started his work, similar to Sam. Going against contemporary thought in such a masterfully concise manner to such a wide audience has been dangerous in the past, yet Exertus is alive, well, and thriving. Influencing has finally allowed for people to share. Sorry. Influencing has finally allowed for people. Sorry. Influencing has finally allowed for power to be shared to those who would not only use it for themselves. This must be because the business as usual show of the elite can still go on, even while the news shows of and by the people don't cut into their bottom line. But that can't be, because with less people watching and believing in the mainstream and more people becoming independent, profits must be affected. If profits are being affected by minds becoming disillusioned, which they must be, then why are these influencers allowed to continue? This points to money and ego not being the only factor behind the hoarding and corruption of power in the past. Maybe greater forces at work, but we will save that greater discussion for a later day. All right, so that's the monologue, guys. Trevor, join back in whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
Good to be with you, brother.
Yes.
So we've talked about a lot of this already, and I've written down some of the things you've added. Yeah, what do you think? Where do you want to go from there? Or from here? Should we start talking about those things you had?
Well, let me think here. One thing I wanted to mention off the rip is that today is actually, when we're recording this, is November 9th.
And I've noticed
So
that
it's
too.
11/9.
Oh yeah.
Not 9/11. Not to be confused with 9/11. 11/9.
Yeah, I just noticed that. I'm gonna take
So
off my ASMR voice. So this is the normal
no,
me,
that was
guys.
good. That
Thank
was
you.
really good. That made me think of a few things, but I don't know if you have them like listed. If you want to refresh my memory.
Sure.
Um,
Do you want to go over like so I have maybe yeah, I know what to do first. First thing that you brought up while we were talking about this in phone discussions before we of course recorded today. Um, you said that not only is like I've brought up, not only is Sam the perfect representation of the Aquarian age, being that, you know, he is a masculine leader in an age where everyone is to become a leader, right? An
mhm,
influencer, right? The age of intelligence, right? Knowing and humanitarianism, right? So that democracy and through technology it would all happen. Um, and he does have some philosophy he brings up in his shows that he is for the people, and that's also that fractal, you know, representation of the Aquarian age because he is a humanitarian, right? He's a leader for the people, and he's gone against uh, the you know powers that be with Adult Swim, which we already talked about, and that's kind of that following or more receptive feminine age of Pisces that we've just left, or at least are in the process of leaving behind. So not only is Sam the perfect embodiment of this idea of the Aquarian age, but you brought up when we were talking about all this that MDE itself is, which for all of those who don't know, that's Sam's. Basically, he calls them the comedy troupe. His comedy troupe. MDE is Million Dollar Extreme. Can't use that name anymore, I believe, because of copyright reasons.
well, I think the show from Adult Swim,
Right.
World Peace, is copywritten. I think
Oh,
they
okay.
could still use Million Dollar Extreme, but World Peace has become Extreme Peace, which is also
Right.
kind of funny.
Well, you can explain more, but basically, everyone, like I kind of alluded to it, the network he's made on his own, everyone within it, um, is also a representation of this age. But do you want to bring that up or like
Well,
detail
I
that
don't
more?
remember exactly what I said, but let me see if um what I'm thinking is what I was saying. Like Nick Rochford,
Hmm. Right.
um, he is sort of like a home builder,
Mhm.
and Charles Carroll is sort of like the spiritual, I don't want to say guru, but I mean that's a good term for it. Um,
A leader for his own, right? Just
right,
like how Nick is a builder for his own, right?
right.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Is that what I was saying?
Yeah, you said that, and you were yeah, you brought that to my attention, and of course I was like, yeah, that is exactly, yeah, true, at least in the way that I look at it, you know.
Was there anything else?
Well, yeah, I definitely have other things written down, but
Or I meant in,
I was very brief on what you wrote for that, or what you had me I asked, you know, hey, I'll write this down as a note. It
right,
was a very brief note. It just says MDE being a leading example for the age, just like Sam Hyde is the leader for the age.
right. And they're yeah, they bring their own, they kind of cover all the bases, I feel like. I don't
Right.
like that for what we're all going to need, um in that Charles, like I said, covers the spiritual, Nick covers the practical. Sam does as well. I guess Sam is more, like you said, it could be more philosophical, like, but he's also very practical. But when I
Yeah.
say practical with Nick, I mean like you're gonna need somewhere to live. You're gonna need um, to be able to communicate with people. Nick is very good at like he was a car salesman and a very good one, it seems like. And but aside from that, he just has a lot of tips on like if you're working here, if you're working in this industry, this is how you want to, get on people's good side and not, I mean, yes, in a way to um, get what you want, but it's also like, it's not what he's talking about is like one that he often references is if you're trying to get a job or you're trying to get a, I think that's what he was talking about. Or if you have a job and you're trying to um, network, I guess. This isn't really what the podcast is about. This is just an example of how he's practical and whatnot. He talks about bringing people donuts or coffee and how, like, that's going to cost you $20 to get, like, a group of people in a meeting coffee. But, like, that could, to them, that's like, oh my gosh, like, they associate you with the coffee. And so that's not really what I'm getting at. Is I don't really
No,
I'm
I
not
know what
getting
you're
at,
talking.
yeah. And so that's an example of like
He
how he,
he could bring the dream to reality,
right,
right? And that's what he originally did in their group. He is
yeah,
the one who spoke with Adult Swim and got it on air. Um, and so you brought this up in the phone call as well, and really, really, I'm grateful that you're expanding on it now. So if I can really
yeah,
kind of sum it up, almost, it's Charles is the soul, right? You said spiritual. Um, uh, Nick is the body, and Sam is the mind, right?
right,
Mind, body, and soul. Body, mind, and soul, right? When you're balanced in all of them, is when you really start manifesting your reality. Even though that sounds woo woo, but you have to think before you act, right? And you have to act on your thoughts, right? And so, of course, the mind and the body have to be balanced. But the soul, if you're doing it for a good reason, right? Then you know, in my opinion, the universe, which is a part of you, wants that to happen, and it'll help you along the way, even though it does it in a really mysterious way sometimes.
right. That made me think of, I think originally I was thinking more, they're like a fractal, and even though they embody, well, this goes back to what you're saying actually, what I just thought of, basically, that they all kind of embody the mind, body, and soul, but Sam, he kind of also embodies all three in that, like, I think originally he was, and they probably all do, but
Mm-hmm.
Sam, like, the word embody, like he actually does in that he's gone more towards the spiritual, it seems like. He's gone
Mm-hmm.
more towards, like, I think he's always been into weightlifting or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
he seems to have, not perfectly, but definitely initiated the combination of all three in his own life, in his own work. Uh, even
Right. Yeah.
in even in Fish Tank, which is not his most pop. Maybe it is at this point. I was gonna say which is not his most popular media, but like I think it might be. It might have transcended his. It's definitely transcended his own niche.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I noticed that a lot. There's something about the 24/7 live stream, and then Sam coming in periodically throughout the season of these different seasons of the show. Um, where and Fish Tank is like this 24/7 live stream house. I think they called it like House of Hell originally, where like there's just a bunch of contestants, and they live. It's like Big Brother, but
Mhm.
run by Sam Hyde and MD, so it's a lot more chaotic. And Sam will come in, and his this character, he'll be wearing a costume or like a suit, and he'll be playing this character, but he obviously slips in and out of the character. It's not that serious, the character. But when he spends time with these people, you can see, especially in the first season, how he's trying to influence certain people that he sees potential in. Um, there's this point that was, at the time I watched it live, and at the time it was very disturbing. But there was a contestant who, he didn't claim to have autism, or did he? I think he, yeah, he said he had autism. He had a speech impediment, and he was like this Christian conservative business guy was his whole vibe. And Sam definitely took him under his wing. At first, he was kind of like a laughing stock. This totally represents the age we're in. He was kind of like, the audience sort of hated him. He would say some controversial things, and then he would get on their good side. And there was this moment where he's training, like boxing training with Sam, and Sam is throwing him these like leg kicks, and he's holding the pad, and Sam is a big guy, and this guy's like not very big, and he is kicking the crap out of this pad over and over, and kind of throwing this guy around. And I think he kicked him in the head a few times, either on accident. I assume it's on accident, but he was definitely on purpose kicking him really hard. And it was like really disturbing. I was like, because it just kept going and going and going. But the guy, he never once was like, ow, oh, this is too much. Can we stop? Whereas, like, anyone else, not just on the show, in general, would have been like, the first kick would have been like, oh my gosh, don't do that. But he just got up and got back up and got kicked and got back
Sam
up.
saw the mind, body, and soul in him.
Yeah. And
Right.
eventually, by the end of it, I don't think he won. I think he left on his own terms. That's another funny thing. Um, like, I didn't even think about this stuff. This is just like an example of like, this is clearly the age we're in. Like, he eventually left on his own terms. He didn't really care about the prize money. He, yes, he probably wanted to like grow his own social media, but that's kind of what we're talking about. Like, he was becoming his own leader. And
Right.
yeah, my whole point with that was, yeah, Sam would come in this character, but then he would kind of drop the character and be like, so what do you eat? Um, what do you want to do with the money? Like, if you win the show, um, and you would get to see, and just through what Sam would eat, like, it's 24/7, and Sam's not on it 24/7, but you would just get to see a glimpse into like, okay, this guy is clearly focused on his health in terms of like weightlifting and boxing and etc. Not as much the soul, but I think the soul comes out in moments like that. Like, that was a really dark example of him kicking the crap out of some guy, but like there's other examples where he clearly cares about these people, and I learned a lot about him as a human being from that. Like, I would he it they created the show to torture people. That's literally, years ago, I remember on a podcast they were talking about this show, like, this just as an idea, and that was the idea, was to torture their own fans and try to get them to quit. And it, from the jump, like from day one, season one, it was like, okay, that's not what this is gonna be. Like, these people are, although they're cringe and a lot of them were obnoxious, even the worst of them, Sam clearly, like, he cried a lot. Um, just when people would leave, like I said, even hated characters, people that the fans hated and that he hated, or at least were obnoxious, he would cry when they left. Um, so that showed a lot.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I know he gets a lot of crap, and kind of for good reason. He, like I said, he says a lot of stuff that to me is a little bit impulsive, a little bit of not really well thought out, too blanketed, too general. But I do think he really cares. And anyways, that's kind of the, like I said, the kind king, um, Jesus Christ archetype uh, is the leader that we should all look to be during the Aquarian age, or during any age, but during this Aquarian age where everyone is the water bearer, right? The angel pouring out the water, or the knowledge, or the spirit, the life. Water is the life. Um, we, that's at least what I'm seeking to do. I know that's what Trevor is seeking to do, and that's what this show is all about. So hopefully you guys see where we're coming from.
Yeah, and something that I was thinking about the last time we talked, that I don't know if this is your point, but
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's a sort of fractal, in another fractal, in that yes, everyone has the ability to, and I think will eventually be their own leader, and that's the goal. I think the why I say fractal,
Be a leader and be their own leader, of course. Yeah, exactly.
a
Yep. Stop
fractal.
following everyone. Yeah, or
Well,
stop following one group, and
that's what you're
start
saying.
leading. Yeah.
That's what you're saying. But
Mhm.
what I'm saying might not. Well, I think it still is, but because in history it's been very, there's a leader and
Mhm.
followers. It's not. I'm saying we have the ability to, but I think what this age is going to start to happen, and it's already started happening, but what will continue to happen is that more and more people will start to be leaders and be their own leaders. That
Mhm.
isn't to say that like everyone will be a leader, because like they will in the future, but right now I think it's, I say fractal because it's going to take leaders of smaller communities, like it's a fractal of what it used to be, in that it used to be the one king of the whole nation or whatever it would have been,
Mhm.
and now there will be a leader of a certain space, and then that will create more leaders, and then eventually it will get to where everyone is their own leader.
Yeah.
That's not like a super great point, but
Everyone
I'm
is a
just,
leader. Yeah. Everyone is a leader. They are not just blindly following people, and so they lead their own lives well, and help lead the lives of others, but they don't. They're not solely a follower anymore, and they don't just. Uh, they're also not just a leader, but uh, you know they're more balanced. And before it was just so many followers, and so we're getting out of that. But yeah, in a humanitarian way, where it's going to be a positive thing that everyone is able to reach this goal through technology, um, the democratization, like I said, of power. We're now going to share the power to influence people, and so yeah, of course, it's a double-edged sword, right? Would like I said, we're going to use, some people will use it for completely selfish reasons. But yeah, that's going to be hopefully the more we see a a bad leader, the easier we could spot him, you know. And sometimes it takes the harder lesson of falling for that person, hurting yourself because of it, and then you learn the hard way, like I said. But eventually, we will understand that. And like I said, that the silver lining of seeing all of these governments and politicians and like leaders who ended up either failing or being liars or never even getting to start. They all, they teach us that we have to. They're just like us, right? They don't have all the answers, or they can't solve all the problems, and so we have to look inside of ourselves, and instead of looking for a perfect being outside of us to follow. We have to become the perfect being, and then hopefully those closest around us will start following us too. uh, Lead by example. That's the thing that Sam told me, not told me, but said once. It always stuck with me. I brought it up in other videos, but he said, take care of first, take care of your community, your close community, before even trying to grow your, society or something like that. He also said something like, uh, big ambitions or too great ambitions are the killer of goals, or the killer of basically that ambition, because you get overwhelmed. Anyways,
Yeah, I think I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but one that sticks with me too, that he said, I don't think he came up with this, but or he definitely didn't, but perfection is the enemy of good.
yeah, right. Well, that goes into both of the things we were just saying.
Right. That did remind me of a crazy perfect example of everything that we're talking about is Jordan B. Peterson, who I guess right now is like super sick and was like on the brink of death. I do think that I hate to be cynical or whatever, but I do think that was a sort of psyop. He probably is really sick, probably was on the brink of death, but um, it was like right after Charlie Kirk and had been assassinated, and I think that is there's a mini version, or it's not very mini, and I can get into some other aspects of that in a second, but in the I'm not gonna lie, I'm not too familiar. I don't want to expose myself, but I think anyone who's listened to the podcast that I've done with you and is even slightly um, you know, observant can kind of pick up on that I'm not like a super uh political person. Well, they might I have traditional values maybe, but um what I'm getting at is I'm not too familiar with like what's going on in like the liberal media. I am more familiar with what the mainstream, like I'm pretty much aware of when it comes to liberal and progressive media as like the average American, not including liberal people, not the average liberal or the average young person, like the average person in the world, like I pretty much know about. But so I'm more familiar with the conservative world just because of my, I don't know, algorithm or whatever the internet algorithm thinks that I am into. So the reason I say that is Charlie Kirk happens, which everyone was aware of, but then like the Jordan Peterson one, most people might not be aware of that. But to me, I'm witnessing like in the conservative movement, there's a version going on of what you're talking about or what we're talking about, which is like, so this guy who's seen as a leader in the movement is assassinated, and then another guy who is also seen as a leader in a different way, a more philosophical, spiritual way, um, is like on the brink of dying. And
Mhm.
so I kind of saw that as like, basically exactly what you're talking about. Like, okay, so these were your heroes, young conservative people. Um, one of them is dead and the other one is dying. You know, do with that what you will. Figure it out on your own, basically.
Wow.
And
Good.
but when you were talking about Sam's thing that you stuck with you,
Mhm.
pretty much the same thing, but a little bit more in depth is like Jordan Peterson also had this advice. And yeah, to be clear, I think I have uh, a lot of people have this opinion now that Jordan Peterson at a time, and I think a lot of other people would be like, oh yeah, he's been always been cringe. Um, but at a time, there was a time where he had some very good advice for a very specific crowd of like young guys who were, you know, lost. And I wasn't like super influenced by him by any means, but I always thought back in the day and even up till recently he had some interesting things to say. And one of them was like, I think he described it as like a Russian nesting doll where you first need to fix your life, like yourself. Not necessarily fix wasn't the word he used, but you need to focus on yourself in your life, and then your partner. In this case, he was referring to a wife. Um, and then you focus on your wife while simultaneously yourself. But it goes yourself, your partner, your family that you create, um, and then your community. And so it's not like you focus on yourself and then you forget your wife. Yes, exactly. So I guess in this case, the little one would be yourself. The bigger one that covers the next one would be, or the first one, your partner, then your family, then your community. And so, and you never neglect the other ones. But basically, like, you can't go, the grand point of this is you can't just go straight to your community. I think you could. I think it could work in reverse, but it's better, seemingly, to do it with yourself, so that the other ones don't get neglected.
Yeah, that always stuck with me. I didn't hear it from Jordan, but I heard it from Sam. And like I've said, I've brought it up in other videos. Really, truly, I'm really trying to live by that. Also, believe like in so many great pieces of wisdom from the Wizard of Oz, but one of them being that at the end she just wants to go home, and I feel like for me, I resonate with that. I know not everyone else had a great upbringing, but I did, and I had great friends, family, and so returning home and kind of what I was seeking out there, anyways, was like a greater community with more like-minded individuals. But um, I guess I have well, I have you, I have other people who are already like-minded enough, and maybe if we grew together, that would be even more beneficial for the world for multiple reasons. I've thought that. Um, yeah, The Wizard of Oz is great. They have another. While we're on the subject, really quick, it kind of has to do, or it has a lot to do with this, but it's one of the main ideas in the film is that Dorothy goes to the wizard because he's got all the answers, right? And they get this is the wizard is representative of the experts, the priests, the scientists, the politicians, right? Everyone, all the leaders we look up to. She goes all the way there, then finds out that he isn't all that he said he was, right? And he's actually just another person like herself who doesn't know all the answers. And yeah, that's what the realization that you have to come to by finding that these these leaders aren't going to be able to save you, and that they're flawed just like yourself. I've thought about how first you get disillusioned with, let's say, I was never into Hillary, but for an example, say you're into Hillary, then you find out she's corrupt. You go to Bernie, then yes, he's better, and you see him being cheated. So and for good for good reason. The Democrats who are trying to stay in control, he gets cheated, and you're like, wow, yeah, he really must be great. They're really trying to cheat him, and then he bends the knees, or he bends the knee to the party, and doesn't call them out once he gets cheated. And so then you're like, okay, well, he's flawed too. Or then even later on, he does more stuff you don't like. Say like not coming to a vote that allows, he would have been the one vote needed against the FBI looking at all your search history, right? Say you cared about that. Now you see, and then maybe for other reasons, now you stop believing in Medicare for all because you don't think there's enough doctors for it in the country. Maybe you start seeing the flaws in that guy, and then you totally throw him out. And then you go to like the fringe people, you see they're flawed, right? And then you're like, well, who do I go to then, right? Well, you go to yourself, and you have to start taking care of yourself and stop looking for these other people to take care of you. Same thing could be happening with on the Republican side. Trump's great, then you find his flaws. Oh, okay, well, RFK Jr. is great, then you find his flaws.
Right.
Then you go to the fringe guy. Oh no, he's got flaws too, right? Well, yeah, of course they're all going to have flaws, and they're not gonna save you.
Right. And
You
I
can only
would definitely say that is going on the conservative side, but I would even say an even crazier example had just happened with Donald Trump. But if I had to guess, it's probably something that just happened with the, like, and when I say just, I mean within the last 25 years. Like, probably it was a similar experience, but this one is just way more amplified, as Obama,
we're
where
also closer to it, so we remember it more, we know about it more, right?
yes, but what I'm getting at is, like, I don't think, well, no, it was probably, yeah, probably exactly the same, but now that I think about it, because what I was gonna say was, on one hand, Obama was probably for liberal or progressive people, or maybe people who aren't even political. They thought, this is gonna be the guy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the first non-white president in America.
Yeah.
He's gonna be the guy to bring in the socialist utopia, or maybe not even socialist, especially at that time, but like the true progressive America. We can stop worrying about all this and that. And then, like, he gets in and he's literally the same as every other
Right.
president.
And he
And
had his staff picking out, or having emails from Chase Bank and blah 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 bank to uh, pick who his advisors would be inside of the White House. And so
and
yeah,
well, so
before he
what
even got elected, right?
Right. And so maybe this is exactly the same, but not. I do think even with it's extremely similar, but I do think Donald Trump, for conservative people, and similar to Obama, some non-political people,
Hmm.
um, was similar but actually unique. Like Obama was unique in that he wasn't a white Christian man. Donald Trump, but the way that Obama was the same as the rest of the presidents, that Donald Trump was unique from the rest of the presidents, is that Obama followed the political pipeline to become president. He was like a, a lawyer, which is very common in most politicians. Like a lot of politicians start out as lawyers, and
Yeah.
because they're affecting the law, and you need to know the law. You don't need to, but as Donald Trump shows,
Yeah.
you don't need to know the law. But like that is something that I feel like in the past has convinced people, oh,
Hmm.
this guy can be in charge of the law. And I understand the difference between executive and judicial and uh, whatnot, but I'm just saying like that's and then he became governor, et cetera, et cetera. I think he was governor of
He was a senator, I believe, or he's
yeah,
something to do
Illinois
with
or something.
Chicago, probably, yeah, or Illinois.
But anyway, Donald Trump did not follow that pipeline at all, and so on the conservative side, people thought, oh, he's going to be the guy.
Yeah,
He's going to
yeah,
be the guy that
rocks the
gets
boat.
rid of the drains the swamp.
Right.
And that's a crazy one to me because he wins, and this is a psyop to me, a clear as day. Like I knew
Hmm.
he was going to win this time. I knew he was going to win the first time.
Yeah.
The second time, I basically, I'll just say I had a feeling he was going to win in 2016.
Hmm.
I had a feeling, but 2020 I really had no idea, but I had a feeling he was going to lose, and then I had a feeling he's going to win again, and it's like
David
they
Icke says that what you could always count on whoever is going to be, or whatever is going to be the most divisive outcome is going to be that outcome,
That's
right?
funny. Yeah, that's definitely a way to tell
Yeah.
that someone would have been able to tell that same
Yeah. Right.
same thing. But the way I saw it was, well, the first time I thought he was going to win because I was 17 and I thought elections were um, somewhat real. I assumed
Yeah.
they were partially fake, but 2020 I thought was fake, and 2024 I also think was fake. But like um, fake in the sense they let him win in 2016 so they could put the pandemic on him. And then they let Joe Biden win so that they could kind of let the same crowd that thought Trump was going to be the savior think that all hope was lost. And then they let him win again in 2024 for reasons yet to be seen fully. I do think there is going to be, I've told you before, this is kind of the nitty gritty. This isn't like the nuanced stuff, but like just throwing out predictions. I think they're gonna try to pin him with something war related that has yet to be seen is going to happen, and they're gonna put it on him and blame him, and it may well be his fault, but they're gonna do it with or without him. They're just using him as a scapegoat,
Hmm.
like they did with the pandemic and the vaccines and or the V word I should have said, but the
So
yeah, I just say the V word because I think YouTube is still weird about those things,
we'll
but
get more views. More. We'll get out to more people if we don't use those words. So,
right.
but I understand. It's all right. It's already been done.
So my point is with the topic of discussion, the democratization of power,
Mm-hmm.
all of those conservatives, similar to Obama with the progressives, who saw him as the savior, I would be willing to bet majority of them. But that's why I find it so funny. It's like they already had that happen in 2020 with the V word. They like I know conservatives who were like, "Oh, he's not getting my vote again. He did the
Yeah.
thing, you know." And but then they did it again. They went out and they put their name on the paper and said that they wanted him to win again. And this time, the same thing is happening, but even worse. Like virtually, he said he was gonna drain the swamp the first time. He kind of became the swamp. He gets back in, and everyone's like, "Well, this time he learned. He learned how it happens. They get in like what you said, Chase Bank, um, and it happened again, and so a lot of those people, we'll see how it goes. But I can say for myself, I'm confident that who is the president, they do have power in a sense, but no one, and I never believed that the president was going to come to save me. But I think progressives and conservatives at this point are all in agreement that we're going to have to figure this out through our community and through our families and through ourselves. And I've seen that on both sides. I see the Free Palestine progressives kind of posting about community, focusing on community, which has always been a progressive value, I assume,
Mm-hmm.
but it's becoming more and more the focus, a practical focus. Same thing with the conservatives. I've heard, like I said, I'm more familiar with that side of the internet. So, I've seen that for years now, since 2020, like the community focus. Um, so, yeah, I think that's an ultimate good that I think had to be and will continue to be rammed into people's minds. Like I said, this has been 12 years at this point since the 2016 election. And so for those people who were supporters of him, they've had 12 years of this lesson being learned. And I think that's good. Like, that's definitely good. But, it sucks that it has to take 12 years in some sense. But when it comes to learning any skill or anything, that's actually what it takes usually. You don't, get it the first time. You have to, figure it out again and again and again.
Right. As long as people are still willing to fight wars, there's going to be wars. There's that's at least how I see it. Either the universe or some entity or force in it or group in it is going to keep throwing that test at us, and if we keep failing, failing that test, we're gonna keep having wars, and that's the only way it's going to stop. And so it is uh, the power and the choice is within us, not um, we like to throw it on the people who are in charge, but it takes two to tango. You could really look at all the people around you still falling for it as just as much the people responsible for these bad things. But so let's yeah, I like that you brought up all that. It was one thing I want to say is that RFK Jr. When it comes to, oh, well, we figure out Trump's bad because, well, I mean, you don't have to really think too hard. There's quite a lot of stuff. But anyways, one thing was if you thought he was going to be great, and it's something not great, but like if you were hoping he would have been not like the others, right? Like he came in talking about ending wars and blah blah blah, and then of course he kind of just started following Israel, and obviously Israel is all about war, and he did the Iran strikes, and you know threw away the Iran deal. So yeah, definitely, yeah. Okay, now I'm disillusioned by Trump. This hypothetical person. Well, and it didn't work perfectly because RFK Jr. showed his cards before Trump, right? RFK Jr. The flaw in him, of course, is that he's also basically a Zionist. So, at least coming from to me, if you're looking at the unbiased, trying to find the unbiased, good and bad in a person, that would be a negative to me, at least. I think anyone who's following Israel um, without any sort of call out for what they're doing to Palestine, I think you're not very fair in your judgment or unbiased. But anyways, so you find, yeah, RFK Jr. He's not gonna be the one either. All right, well, dang, who do I have? All you have is yourself, and that's why the democratization of power, power to the people, is not going to come through any one of these leaders. We're not going to be supported or enfranchised by people who are trying to enfranchise themselves first, right? It's going to have to come from ourselves, really taking care of ourselves. Okay. But, and I like David Icke's always said, if you're looking for a government handout, get ready to be expecting a pittance, because that's all you'll get, and, and going back to RFK Jr.'s, wow, at one point it seemed like he had a lot going for him. He had, he was right on the V's, he was right on health, in many ways, the environment. And then, of course, he started around the same time. Well, actually, no, that's why I said it didn't make sense. Even before Trump started coming out for being a bootlicker for Israel, RFK was. So it's like, eh. But anyways, that's a good lesson. No one on that side is going to save you either. So, and anyways, RFK came from the other side, and he just went to the right because there was no hope on the left. But there's no hope on either side. On the other side, guys, don't waste your time. Promise you, choose your own side, and the side of everyone else you'll be doing at the same time. But anyways, yes, Trevor.
I think that RFK is a perfect example, and I don't know if you're if we're coming to a close here, but there's one thing I wrote down in reference to your monologue that connects back to what I was just about to say about RFK. I don't know if I fully believe this at this point. I don't really have a take on it, but the way I've heard what you were referring to in the monologue about, I think what you're saying could be true, probably is true, but in addition to that, the way I heard this explained is, and this goes back to the democratization of power, is back in the day, you could assassinate someone and silence them. I won't get super into depth how that would work, but it's kind of self-explanatory. There was no internet. They're not going to write books about, they're not going to write books about that. Like, he was killed because he said this. And then it seems like they stopped doing that at some point. Like, I can't pinpoint when, but they started to, I've heard this explained somewhere else, that it became, at least in 2015, it became they would assassinate your character. They didn't have to kill you, because it's a twofold thing. If they were to kill you, that would, now with the internet, that would amplify, and we've seen this now with I would say Charlie Kirk. It amplifies your message. It doesn't silence your message. It now makes people think, well, no, maybe he was killed because he was right. Whether they were right or wrong, there are a ton of people that are going to now wonder, like you were saying with the politicians, oh, they were silenced, they must be onto something, like you were saying with Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
That's what a lot of people on the internet are doing with Charlie Kirk. But what I'm getting at is they started to assassinate your character because that worked um, temporarily, where it would be too obvious if we killed them. It might amplify their message. It might do the opposite of what. But this is coming at it from a different perspective than you were, slightly, in that. Um, well, what I'm getting at is it's now unavoidable. That's basically what I wrote down. I just wrote down unavoidable. It's unavoidable, the democratization of power, and that real basically agreeing with your point now, whereas that was kind of different than what you were saying with why they would assassinate people.
Hmm.
And this is an agreement that they recognize, okay, and they had to have done this on purpose. They wouldn't have given us, or they wouldn't have created the internet if they wouldn't have known, okay, now everyone's going to be able to basically have their own influence. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so RFK, his uncle, was an early, and a lot of people argue this is why he was assassinated. Probably in addition to what you were saying, like a much grander like reason, but directly he spoke out against Israel in the 60s, and um, which was like extremely unpopular. It's still, now it would be popular, but back then it was beyond unpopular. And I think in order to maybe not necessarily survive literally, but in order to do anything with his life in any what he sees as meaningful way, he probably had to, uh, you know, agree. RFK now Junior had to kind of change his stance um, on what you would think. Oh yeah, my uncle, who was like probably someone he sees as a leader, as do
Yeah.
millions and millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you would think he would be on the same side, and yeah, he's had plenty of time to.
Right. I think I know what you're saying. See, I think they're all too smart to be doing what they're doing, and they are all characters made up to basically show you the flaws of, they're just, the Illuminati's just doing it in a reverse psychologically, or they're trying to do it in that reverse psychological way where they give you the Wizard of Oz experience. And so you have to figure it out. So yeah, no, I don't think that there's any way you could explain why RFK Jr. would be doing the things he's doing, which meanwhile he saw his his uncle pointing out these flaws so long ago. Are who knows how far it goes back, but they're all, even JFK, all of them, right? To me, and I don't have any way to prove it, but they're all characters, and they're built. This is there's a long. I don't know exactly what the order is to it, right? I don't always know, or never going to know, but I can't always guess what the order of the social engineering is. But it's seen, and we're gonna describe this much more. So stay in tune, folks. This is what the show is going to be going into. We're going to be completely open. I think a lot of people think about this stuff, but they don't bring it up because they're trying to basically play the game, and they know how these people play their game, right? And so they're trying to fit into it, even if they don't have contact or like handlers telling them what to do. But and I don't blame anyone for going that way. I think Sam goes that way. I think Andreas goes that way. He said he won't say certain things, but anyways,
Well,
there.
go on.
Hold on,
I do
yeah.
have something I want to throw in there when you're done.
Yeah, there's I don't want to waste too much time with why RFK it has zero logic, because I don't think that I think that that's a character we'll be arguing about for forever if we do. It's just there is no logic. It's just
not RFK, but
these people are characters, made to look flawed, and people are eventually going to figure it out. But anyways, what do you want to say?
I mean, this is just about how that happens. I think, and I have like evidence for it. Like, I think it's a
How what happens?
The characters are developed.
Yeah.
I don't know if we differ in this, but I think so. That I don't think I think it's simultaneously planned and controlled, but also out of their control. In that, Sam Hyde is my evidence. In that, I think
Sam Hyde's not a character. He makes his own character in a way. He's not like a pre-made character for them where he's like listening to everything they're telling him to do. He's just like playing with inside of a game. He's playing a game with inside of a game, which is okay. Like I said, it's how you get as popular as Sam, and still get to reach as many people as he do. But like all of his hot takes, to me, I think aren't always his actual opinions, and he's playing up that side of the character. Which
that's what I'm getting at is like and another. So aside from RFK, but he applied to this, is like, yes, there are characters that are created by these people, but there's also those characters themselves are people that probably beyond their control, just astrologically, spiritually, like in every way, embody and connect to what, and they may oppose, like it may be the opposite, like RFK in his case. But I'm saying Sam Hyde is embodying a character, yes, intentionally, but one more piece of evidence. This isn't evidence, but like the way, like every individual fits in this story of the the world, but also the plan of these people who are in some ways in control, or I would say think they're in control. They aren't in control of every individual's character, but everyone fits into this story. And so I'm just basically saying that, like, yes, there are scripts and there are roles that these people fill, but I think some of it is beyond their control, and they fit into the story anyway, like with or without, like Trump, he fits their script and their role of who they need him to be, but he also is a human being that has
well, yeah, he's got the flaw of basically being able to be tempted by them, which is understandable as well, and especially if you think what they're doing is right, which is still up in the air. We don't know, right? But yeah, no, I okay. What?
Sorry, I'm just saying, like, he is a person with a spirit that, like, they couldn't have written this script better. Like, they didn't write this script, is what I'm saying. Like, they wrote their script, and Trump as an actor in their role, his like who he was born to be is that character with or without their script. If he worked at Whole Foods, he is like the most bombastic, like egotistical guy naturally. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like he naturally is this guy that perfectly fit their role that they then probably molded him to be. It's a
Well,
nature nurture thing.
who knows how long he's been being molded into this position? If you were told when you were a child, son, you're going to be the president, um, you got to listen to everything I say if that's something you want, or if or hey, we don't know the technology they have. What if they're even if they weren't showing the future? What if they're pulling up some AI generated BS, like, or who knows what the hell they do, man? But
But
anyways,
I'm just
we're gonna
saying,
talk about that more in other episodes.
yeah.
I know what you're saying. You don't. I got you, Trevor. Yeah, no, he. Uh, well, hold on. Maybe they also they looked at his natal chart and they're like, hey, this is the perfect guy. Hey, brother Mason, we got you your son, man. You pumped out a good one this time. You know, we're gonna make him hey, and your name Trump, it even fits into it. Blah blah. Who knows? It doesn't. But yeah, there is that some of what you're talking about, or
Yes, but I'm saying like they beyond yes, that's basically what I'm saying, but they whoever they are, like they can't do that for everyone. They don't do that for everyone. So my point is there is we've talked about this. There's God's plan and their plan and they may align, but I'm just saying the universe is so perfect in its creation that he yes, it's simultaneous. Like yes, they could have done that, but it's perfectly created by God. So like they are doing their best to do that, but God is really the one pulling the strings. And I'm not saying he is doing what I don't actually personally agree that they are aligned in their plans with God, but God is ultimately pulling the strings. That's my ultimate thing that I'm saying. Like everything
yeah,
fits too
well,
perfectly to be
yeah.
controlled by humans.
Part of their argument could be we are in this position only because we're allowed to be in this position by God, right? So we must be doing something right, you know, or we must be on his side if we're able to even do these things, right? So of course that's like the divine rule, you know, and but in a way, if you understand, you know, how sacred you are, right? This being that comes into this world that has free choice and can do so many things, right? Part of God that can actually act on its own, right? You know, or maybe you think I'm put into this world to exert my will, you know, and but and that's what I think. That's what I think everyone is actually, you know, and I think they'd be right if they're thinking along those lines. Um, the only thing is that you have to guess on what the good or right, or sorry, what the right way to exert that will is, right? And the balanced way, and to where you're being, you know, fair to the people, you know, in your life that you're going to eventually have to use in your or work with in your getting your will, you know, here on earth, you know, done, right? Manifesting your wants and desires, right? Um, you know, you can only guess what's the greatest good for the most people, right? And so they have to guess too. Um, maybe they, you know, anyways, we're
This
going to
is
talk
more,
about this
yeah,
more. How about we wait? Yeah.
yeah, we'll talk about that on because we'll talk about that on the mystery school, the next episode.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're good or not.
Well, no, there's mystery schools and there's the Illuminati episode. There's two.
Well, either or,
Mm-hmm.
we'll get more
Yeah,
into
we'll talk more.
because I definitely have
We both do.
takes on that. But
we both do.
I was more or less, I'm not trying to get at whether they're right or wrong. I'm just saying when it comes to the influencers and the power balance, the
Hmm.
power, and I guess this is the mystery school or the next episodes, but I think the greater point of this whole conversation is that the power isn't in anyone's hands. I would say it's in God's hands, but that's for a later discussion. What I'm trying to say is that yes, they are writing a script, and their script is very well planned and it's executed almost perfectly. I think the perfection doesn't come from them. The perfection comes from the fact that everything is already perfectly aligned with or
Yes.
without them.
Right. Yeah. Well, we've talked about how you think that you know I think I don't want to speak for you, but like it is only God allowing them to have this happen, that they're able to do it, and because there is something to be learned from all of them, right, from them doing it, and so right, God sees um, the good of what could come from it, basically, right, and right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
A perfect way of putting it that is a crazy fractal is
Hmm.
essentially what you're saying, what you've said throughout this episode about how they are allowing a specific person to
Yeah,
be used as an example
yeah,
of why we shouldn't trust leaders. I
yeah,
think
yeah.
God is doing that with them.
With them, yeah, no, I agree, and that's what we're going to get down to in other episodes. I agree with that. I think there's even an intermediary. What the heck is
Yeah,
the word? Anyway, there's like someone in between them, right? Um, like angel, demon thing, whatever. And yeah, we're going to talk about all that.
we also
Intermediary.
did on the first episode on BitChute. That's what I
Did we?
believe is
Yeah,
the
I can't
idea of
even remember.
spiritual warfare. There's
Yeah,
a spiritual war going on between angels and demons. I don't know if we like explicitly
yeah.
got into that.
Well, I don't. Yeah, no, no, no. Yeah, you're
I
gonna
know that's
hear
not what you're
my
saying.
nuanced take is a little different. Or yeah, of course, your nuanced take is clearly as well. But the we only have a difference in the intermediary. I wish I knew that word. I sound dumb, but
Yeah, I don't either, but I think it's
maybe it's just a
intermediary.
intermediary. Thank you, thank you. The intermediary, who they are, and then but like what we just said, we agree on with God allowing it because there is um, uh, a point of all of it, actually happening. But anyways, oh, and last thing I want, well, on this subject, the influencers, right, are you know democratizing power is that concept of the king is now basically allowing other people to be king, right? Which and that king is what the king does is uh, he rules. Okay, so anyways, that's where we're coming. Everyone will be able to, well, through they'll at least be able to shape and mold their own reality easier, in the coming future. Anyways, through this technology, and so, anyways, I think that's all I want to say about that. Can I bring up your other two things, your other 2 points you had?
Yeah.
All right. One, and I don't want to go on it for a long time, but Nick Fuentes, this is what I wrote down for what you said. Nick Fuentes causing a divide amongst conservatives gaining power in society. So I really, really, really don't want to go on for too long because I know we can, but Nick Fuentes, just sum up some of what you said yesterday and, paraphrase, you think Nick Fuentes is an example of the influencer reaching a wide audience and becoming powerful and empowering people's discernment on a big scale, right? And to the amount that he's actually divided conservatives on Trump, right? And so and other people like Tucker Carlson. And so we also talked about how maybe he is a plan or a controlled opposition being allowed to do that or whatever. But is there anything that you want to add to that? We of course we don't know all of the we don't know if he is or isn't, but
what I'll just say this: whatever they are doing with him is really interesting, because he basically, in short, I think potentially it's been a plan from the beginning, initially, to like the classic example of controlled opposition. Like, let's put this young guy in the conservative movement who believes that Hitler was like the greatest thing since sliced bread. And that's a pretty obvious, like I said, classic example. Like,
and what would that do? Would that weaken the Conservative Party, or
yes,
would
it would
that
make them look evil.
right?
Yeah.
And
And
then
but now what has yet to be seen, and while I'll leave it at this.
can I say something really quick?
Yeah.
Now, like you said, he's come away from that and now seen more as a reasonable person, and so people following him would also become more reasonable. And then at the same time, he is taking off the masks of Trump and Tucker, and also accomplishing that idea that helping people get the Wizard of Oz experience. Is that basically
Yes,
what
no,
you're
that's a
saying?
good thing. Yes, that answers a little bit of what I was going to say. The only thing that has yet to be seen still, and kind of where I was going with that, what you were just saying is a good thing to have happened, but why I'm still curious, but I'm not really, I guess I would say a little bit concerned, is that there are still going to be, and I would assume a lot of, if not a majority of these people that are becoming new fans of his, are going to go in the opposite direction, and that maybe not majority, but there will be plenty of young people who follow him and go back to his old stuff, and go further down what he was initially seen as.
And maybe they'll at one point they'll run into that he was into tranny porn.
Yeah.
and then they'll go, I don't like him anymore.
Right. So I mean, it'll basically
it's all bullshit. Yes. But anyways, yeah.
No, that's
Right.
good, because that was initially what happened with him, and why I'm still curious to see where this goes with his newfound growth and fame, and I would say close to mainstream popularity, if not mainstream.
So not only is there a flawed hero aspect to a lot of their characters in my eyes, but there's a gatekeeping aspect. So there will be repugnant or bullies, and then there'll be a kernel of truth to what they're saying, and so it'll be like an IQ test for the people, right? You might actually learn something if you're able to put aside your emotions and just listen to what he has to say, right? We don't have to agree with everything that people have to say, right? For them to still be right about some things, right? And so if they put that flawed character in front of us enough, not only are we going to learn to not follow them to a T, but we're going to learn to hear people out. All right. So
One
yeah,
last,
a lot of stuff here.
one really quick point that I think is a big reason it seems like you have said you want to do this
Hmm.
podcast, and something that goes back to our early conversations on all this stuff from years ago.
Hmm.
One reason I differ from you in takes on these types of topics sometimes, but
Hmm.
also why I see your point in other ways is, I'll try to keep it quick, in that they this method that they're using, I think, works on, and I could be wrong, I do think I'm starting to see a little bit more of what you're saying as time goes on,
Hmm.
which I think it's the whole point of
Yes.
their plan. But in the short term, it always does seem like you could use any example on the conservative movement. I'm, like I said, I'm not too familiar with the other side, but Trump and Nick Fuentes are perfect examples that a lot of people, or basically a lot of people, are being radicalized. Um, and like it would take a very nuanced person to learn these lessons. Um,
Hmm. Yeah.
a lot of them, though, are becoming, you know, uh, radicals that are not very nuanced. And maybe that is your point, that over time, even those radicals will learn these lessons, they'll just learn them later. But I think throughout this process,
Yeah,
there will
and
be
they
a
could
lot
be
of
learned
people.
from.
Right, okay.
Their
That's a good
mistakes can
point.
be learned from. Hmm. Yeah, there's multiple agendas being served by and it's order out of chaos, right? It seems like chaos, right? And they make chaos, but there is an order to it, and they seek to achieve order through it. Anyways, sorry to interrupt you.
No, no, that was that.
All right. Well, no, one more. Um, I thought this was freaking hilarious. Thank you for making me laugh. But you said, I wanna do it right. Um, um, you compared like the old way to the new way of like this like well, not the same deception we're talking about, but like actually kind of the opposite, like more of just the overt propaganda. Um, which another thing, overt propaganda, right? When it's so obvious, it's easier to understand, right? How bad it is, right? And so I see that a lot. But that being done a lot, maybe purposefully as well. But goes so you're like, yeah, in the past it would have been, oh man, I want to watch this war movie because Tom Cruise is in it. And of course, the propaganda of while you're watching this, yeah, Tom Cruise, cool guy, real good looking guy. I want to watch all his movies. Now I'll even watch his war movie, and now you're being like basically propagandized to agree with war, on a subconscious level. Now the mental brainwashing is, oh yeah, I want to watch this stream in China because Speed's in it, and then Speed's just making China look cool, basically. I
Right.
know I kind of butchered that, but
No, that was
yeah, you
good.
want to say anything?
Um, yes, in that there's the overt propaganda, and then I
Hmm.
think the full circle, like what this episode's sort of about, is like, I think just the idea of, aside from the China and war thing, it's gone from people watch Tom Cruise movies because of Tom Cruise to now people are watching I Show Speed or Kai Cenat or whoever,
Hmm.
not because those aren't really those that super interesting guys. I mean, they are in a lot of ways. I would say Speed's funny and like an interesting guy, but people don't really watch it for them. They're not really showing who they are, and neither was Tom Cruise. But they're watching it to see, in the positive side of that is that they're watching to see the world and like the chaos like of the stream. They're not watching it to see Tom Cruise play a war hero. They're watching it where whereas people in the past would watch Tom Cruise because they were like hero worshiping him. They're like, Tom Cruise is the man. People aren't really doing that when they're watching Speed. They're not saying, yes, there are plenty of kids that are like, Speed's the man. But for the most part, there are lots of nuanced. I don't think they're really watching Speed, but the idea of watching a stream in general, there are plenty of normal people. Not that those kids aren't normal, they actually are, but there are plenty of nuanced people that watch streams. Like I watch Fish Tank. Um, yes, there is a negative side to it. That's like, why am I watching these people live their lives instead of living my own? But sometimes you just watch stuff to watch stuff, and like I watch Fish Tank to see what's going to happen with these real people in this real moment and this real earth that I'm also living on. Whereas when you watch Tom Cruise in a movie, you're watching your idol pretend to be someone who they're not. And I think that translates to most forms of media that are popular now and is perfectly aligns with the Aquarian age.
Yeah, yeah, that more candid version, which is what we're doing here. I think that this is actually going to. I mean, thing is conspiracy theorist podcasts exist, but I feel like a lot of them, are careful with what they say. But yeah, no, that the next step, I believe, is this, and yeah, that's kind of why I want to lead it because no one else is doing it, at least in my eyes. Maybe I haven't seen it happen because it doesn't get a lot of views, understandably so, or for whatever reason, or because um, yeah, it's either not been done or not been thought of, right? But anyways, yeah, I like that the streams are more, even though yeah they're playing a character in that.
Right.
At least they're interacting with like other people who aren't actors in a real world, or at least some of them are going to be not actors, probably a lot of that stuff is staged and too, but and maybe they are more open when with some of the times when it is, but anywho, we will we will definitely continue this. Appreciate you being here, brother. I love and
Of
respect you.
course.
You're always like you're my inspiration for this, and I hope we inspire each other because I think it. Like I said, I don't know if I said this before, but if Trevor thinks it's cool, then I think other people will too. And if he's willing to listen, and vice versa with me, we could all learn from each other. So let's keep going. Uh, hopefully,
Well,
we'll get out a new episode soon. So, what, Trevor?
I appreciate you saying that, and yeah, it is. The feeling is mutual.
Thank you, brother. All right, let's end it there. Sounds good, brother.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, bye, guys.